You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. Riding shotgun with me today is Kristina Dennis.
Hi
How
there.
you doing, Kristina?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for asking. Episode number 75 today, February 16th, 2022. Can you believe it?
I can, because it's here, but 75 is a lot. That's awesome, Damon.
It is. We're at 75. We're going to soon, probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll be at 100, and we have to have like a 100 party, I think.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's only because of everybody that's listening here. Thanks to everybody who's listening on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram TV, and on all of your favorite podcast channels. We would not be at episode 75 if it was not for the Recovered Life community.
That's right. Absolutely. We need you.
So thank you all so much for joining us here today with episode 75. We've got a great show today. I want to talk about dry January, even though it's February. We're in the middle of February.
Right.
Dry January. And I read this article that was super interesting. And I wanted your opinion on it, Kristina.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about dry January. We also in the show, I have a great interview with Gabri Augello coming up about the pink cloud.
I love her.
Who doesn't like talking about pink cloud? Isn't she great?
She is really, really great. I love your interviews.
Gabri is so amazing because of her energy is just really neat. Well, what do you call Gabri? Is she a Gen Z?
Yes, I believe
Gen
so.
Z. I'm a Gen X. I'm a Gen X. I know that.
Me too. And then it was millennials and then Gen Z. Is what I understand. But there may be more.
Well, what's interesting about this interview that I've got coming up is how open the Gen Zs are to recovery, just recovering out loud.
So true.
Shocking.
So true. It's
honestly.
Beautiful. It really is.
It is nice. And that leads me into this whole dry January thing, Kristina. I found this article. I stumbled upon this article, and I'm going to open it up here on screen so people can see it because I think it's worth a discussion here. And it is all about it's all about dry January. It says coming off dry January, stay sober curious in February.
Yay!
And yay! It's from the News-Herald, right?
Okay.
It's from the News-Herald. And the interesting thing about this, why I really found this to be such an interesting article is Sarah O'Brien, who doesn't really say, right, whether she's sober or not.
No, she doesn't say that. But there's you have to wonder with some of the things that she suggested. You really do. So I know she's not saying everybody has to get sober. And I like that.
She's not. But what's interesting about this is I have to tell you something. This whole sober curious movement, Kristina.
Right.
This whole thing and this whole dry January, I have mixed feelings about this. I
know. I know you do.
We differ on this.
Yes, we do. Yes, we have a different opinion. I think in the long run, it's so awesome to see this in mainstream. And it's so nice to see, the general mass picking up this idea that perhaps we need to look at our relationship with alcohol. And if it's on the newspaper and we're talking about it and it becomes more mainstream, less shame happens around if you have a problem with drinking. I'm not so interested in the label. For me, it's really easy to call myself an alcoholic because I know that that's how I drink. But being an interventionist, I also know that you don't have to hit that bottom. And some people could possibly get sober from this or prevent themselves from maybe moving forward into this situation. So I think it's great.
Okay, I'm agreeing with you on this. I definitely am agreeing with you on this. Although I have to put a big but in there.
Yeah,
caveat. B-U-T, okay? I think this is also sometimes a little potentially dangerous to people who do have addiction problems, okay? Thinking that somehow they're going to be able to stop to them for a month and just to be able to come back and everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine, right? And I think in some ways it prolongs people from really kind of taking action to get sober. Now, I might be wrong. So I see the good point that you're seeing as well, that, look, it brings awareness. So
right.
not everybody drinks.
Not everybody drinks
and uses
I
drugs.
didn't know that when I first got sober. I had no idea that there was huge groups of people and that there were these amazing supportive communities, which she also covers in the actual article. I like that she is asking the question that if you are having obsessive thoughts, or perhaps you're noticing there's a difference between you and others, you know, and what you're thinking about, like, I cannot wait until February 1st comes, I'm going to get smashed. I like that she brings up those questions in black and white for people to look at. And she does talk about getting involved with a support group, that perhaps it's a lifestyle support group, or it's a 12-step group like I came through, where we are really hitting the problem head on. And I like us having the conversation totally beforehand.
Okay, I'm with it. And, you know, one of the things that she points out here, I'm just going to read this. It says, mentally and emotionally, cutting back on alcohol typically leads to better moods. Alcohol is a depressant, which is why you might feel down after drinking. Additionally, alcohol can affect the levels of serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain and worsen anxiety. But you're right. She talks about the health. This is a lot about the health benefits.
And there's so many
of not
there
drinking.
Really are.
And no, there really is. And I think, but let's be honest here. Do you think people that have addiction problems worry about the health benefits?
I know I didn't.
Exactly. I know I didn't either. Didn't either.
But I do think that this could be perhaps what they call a gray area drinker who isn't realizing, you know as well as I do that we have a genetic component as well as a lifestyle component to being having a problem with substance or having a substance abuse disorder. And only 50% of people actually have the genetic code. So perhaps this is a little eye opener for the other 50%. No, I didn't care about my health at all, obviously. But I also think there's so much out there that celebrates the drinking culture that it's really nice to see something coming around and having these trends where we actually say, no, you could live a life without that. You know, it isn't all just have fun. We just finished the Super Bowl, and you know how many millions of dollars go into that advertising. And for somebody who has a substance abuse problem like me, it's a lie. So I like it. Personally.
So here's one thing, and I'm in agreement on a couple of things here with you.
Okay.
One thing is, like, when I first got sober, you know, in the early 90s, I didn't know anyone who was sober.
Right.
I'd never heard of people that I didn't even know it was possible that people live sober. Like, I didn't even think that was a thing.
Right.
I thought everybody drank. Right too. Now, partially that just has to show you that, like, I was wrapped up in alcoholism.
Yes.
Right. But two, the awareness just wasn't there.
It isn't.
It wasn't there. Let's be honest, right?
No,
the awareness wasn't there. And this is good. And I think this whole gray area drinker, and I think the whole thing with gray area drinking is, have they crossed the line? Have they not crossed the line? Now, we know through 12 steps and just data from us living sober.
Yes.
Us being able to see it. There are people who have addiction problems and might be preconditioned to alcoholism, but have not crossed the line.
Right.
And then there's people who have crossed the line and they can never get back. Right.
So true.
So I do think that maybe in some way that this actually could prevent people from, it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm about ready to cross the line.
Right.
No, I don't think anyone knows where that line is. Right. But I'm about ready to cross, but I don't now, maybe because I have awareness, hey, this doesn't work for me, and I'm just going to set this down.
I have to believe people like that exist because I've heard stories about that. Now, for me, there was no imaginary line. I want to make that clear. I crossed it the first time that alcohol, quote, worked. I totally did, and didn't have any option to get, well, I had options. I could have kept drinking, but I didn't have any option for me to live my life and with alcohol. So I'm saying this based on what I've heard, but I do believe there are people out there that can stop drinking or slow it down. It never would have worked for me. So if anybody's out there and you're struggling or having these obsessive thoughts, I want you to pay attention to them because they are really important, just like she said in the article. And get in with the support group and explore. I like the idea of Sober Curious too, because I think that the less shame we have around this, the better it is for everyone involved. So I'm all for dry January. I'm all for staying sober curious. And I really am for the communities that are talking about this. I believe that's important.
Yes. Yes. I think the discussion is the more valuable part of this, whether somebody decides, whether it's like a soccer mom or soccer dad
right.
in Cleveland that decide that they're gonna, wow, I'm just gonna stay sober for a month, and maybe not have that beer on the weekend or that glass of wine, and just to bring awareness to it. Hey,
Yes.
the more the merrier. I think that discussion is great, but
I do too.
going back, the whole thing is, does it stop addiction? Does it
No,
stop? And it's interesting. I don't think it does, to be honest with you.
I
I
don't.
think actually it sometimes could trick people who kind of already know deep down inside that they're maybe an alcoholic or drug addict.
True.
And they're going to use this to say, see, I was able to make it, a week into dry January or whatever. And
Right.
I just chose not to drink. Right.
Yeah.
Or to drink, and so I think, and it's interesting because we put a poll up on the Recovered Life.
Okay. What did it say?
This is interesting. We asked people, we said, hey, does this work? Do you think that this is like preventing addiction at all? And we put it up this morning, and I'm going to, while we talk here, I'm going to take a look and see what the results were. But people were starting to vote right away.
Of course.
Because I think people have really strong opinions about
Absolutely. And if you're somebody like me who has gotten so many gifts from sobriety, most of the time we are really passionate about other people being able to receive those gifts too. I mean, that's what the Recovered Life show is about, is learning how to live that really good life without needing to numb. And I would say our entire world is in a position where they want to numb. And so having these conversations to say, wow, am I doing this? Am I moving forward? Is very, very important.
Well, this is funny. We actually asked the people on Recovered Life, and guys, if you are listening to this on a podcast and you can't see the graphic, you can go to Recovered Life and join up totally for free and cast your vote as well. It says, do you think January helps prevent drug and alcohol abuse? You're gonna love this. 0% said yes. 0. Now, these are all people in recovery.
Sure.
50% of the people said possibly it could.
Yes.
And 50% of the people said no.
Now, see, I was in the 50% of possibly it could at least plant the seed. And I think that's really, really good.
So what we know is that 50% of the people who voted here on Recovered Life are optimists, and 50% are pessimists.
I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say that. Just some of us may be a little more open. I don't know. I go back to what I said earlier, which is when you have such a beautiful transformation like I did, and you know that the life I'm living in the last 25 years would not be anything like it is now, unless I had made this decision, then more than anything, I want people to have that option. I want them to know that it's out there. I really, really do. One thing, too, is the Recovered Life show really is about that kind of conversation. And so for anybody who is interested and wants to support us as we continue to send this message out, one of the ways that you can support us is by liking and following and sharing these kinds of shows wherever you listen to them. Because I think the more it gets out there, the more lives we save. And that might be seriously dramatic, but it's true. Alcohol is still dangerous.
Oh, alcohol is very dangerous. People die of alcoholism all the time. And, if you're in the recovery, if you're really deep into recovery, or in your case where you work in recovery, Kristina, you see people die all the time.
Absolutely.
Of alcohol, untreated alcoholism. And sometimes they even die of mental health issues, and they die because of other issues related to untreated alcoholism, right?
Absolutely. I prior to working in recovery, I was in the hotel business, and it was very, very unsafe for people to get to a place where they had consumed so much, and we had to prevent them. And everybody connects it with driving, but it's actually not that great for anybody to get that inebriated. So something to think about.
Yep, absolutely. I and thank you for mentioning how people can support us, because people do contact us, either through YouTube, Facebook, all these places, and they talk about, they talk about, hey, how can I support the Recovered Life Show?
Right.
And one of the ways that you can do it is just very simply, it's to like, share, and follow. It's just like, share, and follow. It means so much to us. It really, really does.
Great.
Now, moving on here, Kristina.
Yeah.
Moving on to our first segment here, which is our second segment here, which is my interview with Gabri Augello.
Now, see, she's an example.
Fun. Yes, she is absolutely.
She's an example about how you can live a life in recovery at an early age. And I loved this interview that you had with her. I can't wait to hear what people think about it.
It is really, really, really great. So we're going to go to that segment right now, and I'm going to speak with Gabri Augello all about the pink cloud, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about it.
All right.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
Welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. I am pleased to be joined today by our friend, Gabri Augello, who is a Recovering Out Loud social media influencer and has been a guest on the show before, and so thrilled to have her back. How you doing, Gabri?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be back on the show.
I am really excited to have you. We always have really good conversations, and what I really love about you is that you really shine a light on early recovery, right? You have a couple of years now, and we've watched you through being on the Recovered Life Show go through this journey. And we were having this conversation on the phone about the whole honeymoon period, being sober, right? And about how fun that is when you first realize that, wow, I'm going to be able to regain and stay sober. But also that those feelings sometimes kind of end, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes expectations, kill with sobriety. And so for me, I didn't know there was a honeymoon phase. I was just like, oh, this is how it's going to be always. Excuse my dog. And so for me, when, it ended and I had to figure out, okay, like I've been surviving being sober, but how do I really thrive? Like I'm actually, not thriving the way I should. It really threw me for a loop and really like discouraged me, honestly. And so for me, the biggest advice is to, as hard as this is, and nobody likes to do this, is to really sit and validate those negative feelings. For me, I didn't do that. And so I felt super, super guilty. I was like, I've been given this like amazing chance to kind of, rewrite, my life and be sober. And so I kind of felt like, so many people would love to be in the position that I'm in. And so why do I feel these negative feelings? And so when I was judging them, I actually, wasn't processing them and, letting go of them. So that is definitely the first thing I would say is you are absolutely valid in feeling that. I think anybody that's going through this has felt that at certain like periods of time, super valid. So don't beat yourself up for it.
Yeah. I mean, and let's be honest that just the first part of sobriety, especially the first couple of months, right? I would say even the first year is just so shocked that you're sober and so grateful for the fact that you're not at death's door, right? You're not waking up. The ramifications start to go away a little bit. You start to be able to repair things. And then it starts to get a little bit more real, either after 6 months to a year, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that we were talking about that I think it's really great to have a conversation about, because I think a lot of people, they start to beat themselves up and they're like, well, I should be more grateful. And maybe sometimes they're a little bit still sad that they're not drinking. They kind of wake up out of this honeymoon period. Right. Can you describe that a little bit? Those feelings of like waking up and it's like, oh, I really can't go there and I can't drink ever again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for me, I got sober, like my first year sober really was in the pandemic, like in the heat of the pandemic. So I didn't have those temptations of, oh, I'm seeing people go out. Nobody was out. Everybody was home. And so for me, after, that year mark and things started to open up and I saw, other people my age going out and getting invited to go out and things like that. Go out because I was like, I'm not going to, limit myself, obviously set boundaries when going out. But I was like, man, like I wish I could do that. I wish I didn't have to think so critically and so hard about every decision, like, I make and how it's going to affect my mental health. And I kind of was jealous of the people around me that seemed to be able to be so carefree and kind of, just navigate the world and especially the social sphere with ease. And so, yeah, it was definitely hard. It was very devastating. And like I said, I started to judge myself. I feel like a lot of people get really stuck with this like all or nothing thinking. Two like opposing things can be true at once. And once I realized that kind of changed everything for me.
Yeah.
So when I realized like, okay, in this situation, I could acknowledge like, I'm 23, kind of stinks that I just can't go out and, go to the club and drink with my friends, while also acknowledging that if I did indulge in that and I did drink, it would be the worst downhill spiral ever.
Exactly. And
right.
some of it too, we were talking about how funny it is, kind of how our minds play tricks on us. And what's so interesting about recovery and about, going through recovery year after year is that even you maybe see those people going out and, you're younger, so people are going out and doing that. And
yeah,
with COVID for 2 years, people have been basically locked down. Right. So you haven't really had that situation, but you see it and you're like, wow, maybe that would be fun to go do it. But really, you weren't having fun when you were doing that. Right. So
no.
it's not going to be fun, but it's
Right.
just the fact that you feel that you're losing something that you don't really want. It's weird how our minds play tricks on us.
Yeah. Sorry about my dog, he's squeaking. But I feel like when something, you haven't indulged in something for a bit and you haven't been around that lifestyle in a bit, you kind of romanticize, how things used to be. You remember in your mind, oh, when I was drinking, I was doing all of this crazy stuff and it was fun. That wasn't actually the case. If I could rewind time and talk to my past self and be like, why do you remember it this way? This was horrible. But I think we kind of all get in that trap. We love to, remember the good and we kind of forget the bad. And we're like, oh, maybe, this wouldn't be so bad. But I think we all kind of get into that loop. So.
But 6 months into it, let's say you would have maybe fallen for that, right? If it was strong enough, or you would have been led down that road. Well, maybe I can just go. And, you would have maybe put yourself in a bad situation. But now, after you're in it a year plus, it's not, you realize that that's just self-talk, right? That's just talk coming at you. It's not even real necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honestly like mourning something that actually was never there to mourn, I feel. I'm mourning like the idealized version of my past drinking self that wasn't actually there. And while I can say that and be like, that was the idealized, it wasn't real, the feelings that I have are still very real. And so I try to, not judge myself for that and still validate my feelings and be like, yeah, like give myself, some room to mourn that. Because I feel like if you don't acknowledge that, you're not going to actually have sustainable sobriety. You're just going to be, fighting against that. And it's going to be this like combative thing instead of, just focusing on your path of healing. So,
yeah. And one of the things I love about what you do in social media, you're always on TikTok and Instagram, and you're expressing what you're feeling, but you're also expressing a solution as well. And I think this whole recovering out loud thing too makes it a little different because there is more pressure, right? Like if people know that you're in recovery, sometimes you feel like, well, I have to have everything together. I have to have every answer. I have to be perfect all the time. And that's really unrealistic to put on ourselves, that somehow we have to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely, felt that pressure, not even just from the people around me and people that have reached out to me and been like, oh my gosh, you're an inspiration, things like that. I felt that I put that on myself because I was so out there. I was like, oh my gosh, if I say that I'm struggling and I'm giving people advice, I'm like, oh, well, she can't even handle, her own sobriety. Why am I going to take advice from her? When really I feel like, everybody struggles with this. And so I wanted to be as real as possible because, everybody feels this way, even the public figures that may not always talk about the struggle. The struggle is always there. And so if I'm going to be open about sobriety, I'm going to be open about all parts of it. And so that's kind of just, why I'm as open as I am.
And I think a lot of recovery and recovery resources are really centered around people who are coming into recovery, right? And I think what's very powerful about what you said, and I'd like to dive into this a little bit, is that when people that are in recovery express what's going on with them, it's really a relief to other people, because many people feel this way, right? Many people feel like, hey, it's just not going well for me this week. Right. But they don't want to express it because they don't want to say, well, I'm in recovery. Everything should be perfect. I'm so lucky I didn't die. I'm so lucky that I'm not, didn't have any major ramifications. I'm here. Right. And by not expressing it, I think it hurts people's recovery and the people around you in your group. Right. And what's been what has been your experience with recovering out loud on TikTok and expressing that? Do you find that more people are like, wow, I feel that way too?
Yes, I think there's definitely a generational difference. I found that a lot of younger people, like if you look at anybody my age and their TikTok, like extremely personal stuff, jokes about things that, past generations may have been like, you don't joke about that, or you don't talk about that. So, my generation has been very perceptive. I have found a little bit of a disconnect. In the older generation, it's kind of like, well, you need to be grateful for your sobriety and things like that. But I'm kind of like, if we all are feeling this, why isn't this talked about? And it just becomes this taboo, and it kind of just festers. And how can you actually lean on and get support from your sober community if you don't share your whole sober experience with them? I feel like you said, you're missing a huge chunk if you're not talking about the struggle. If there was no struggle, there would be no need for a sober community to lean on. Like,
and if somebody's listening, if somebody's listening to this too, Gabri, they might be saying, oh, wow, second year, third year, whatever, sobriety is going to be very, very difficult. But you're not really saying that. You're just saying that sometimes you hit this impasse where kind of that pink cloud, that honeymoon period's over. And that's when the real recovery begins, right? How did you get out of, you have these feelings, you stay in it for a little bit. What tools did you apply to get out of that and kind of back on track or to a new plateau?
Yeah. Before I get into that, I do just want to say, like, all of this stuff comes in waves. So, I'll apply a certain, technique or a therapy that I've learned, and it does help, but things do come in waves. So I try not to, judge myself when it comes back. And I'm like, wait, I just worked on this. But the best thing for me is when I learned about dialectical behavioral therapy. Like I talked about it a little bit earlier, where two opposing things could be true at once. I feel like I am very much an all or nothing person by nature. It's like I'm having the best time of my life, or this is trash. So when I started to have a rough time in my sobriety, all or nothing, I'm like, is this trash? Huh? Like, I don't think it is, but that's kind of my feeling. And so being able to, do the both and type thinking to kind of get through it really helped. Also too, I said this in my other episodes with you, and I'll say it again, healthy distractions. For me, I think a reason why I did drink is because I was craving some sort of, recklessness or something like that. And so I try to still get that feeling, but in a controlled and healthy way. Like, I love to get tattooed. I love to, work out, be super physical. I try to, not change who I am at my core, but just kind of alter, some of the things that I do so that I stay on like a healthy path.
Yeah, I think the key is what you just said, which is very important to anybody who's listening to this that might be going through a rough time. Look, we just wrapped up the holidays. We're in 2022 and early, and people are feeling, wow, maybe my life isn't where I want it to be in sobriety, right? But what I loved what you said is that these feelings pass. And I think that this is a really big point that you make, is that, you might feel bad for a while, but if you keep working the tools and you keep talking to people and you keep doing the deal and you keep exploring, eventually that it passes and something else comes in.
Absolutely. Like, I love, as cliche as this is, I love the analogy of like the wave. Like, it comes on super strong and you honestly feel like you are never going to get past this feeling. You're like, I'll always feel this way. But then as soon as it comes, it crashes down. You're like, oh, like, that feeling, that's gone and I'm okay. And sometimes for me too, I kind of like to journal when I feel both ways. Kind of like, when I'm feeling better, I kind of journal to myself being like, Gabri, you felt this way before, you're going to feel it again, but you're okay. And it's going to pass because I was there. So that also does like really help me too.
That's great. And, just being able to see those patterns and to be able to stop your thinking, I think that's just such a valuable lesson to anyone that's new in recovery. Mm-hmm. Gabri, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I always love being on the show.
Wow.
That was great, right?
She's brilliant. I mean, truly. And I think that, one of the last things you said was if you're new in recovery, I think that applies to everybody in recovery, remembering that it doesn't last. It's why I love doing this show, because a lot of times people think that the quitting drinking is the end of the story. And for me, that was actually the beginning of a really big, complicated news story. Yep. And, the pink cloud phenomena happened to me. And I remember people kind of whispering about it, but I don't remember a lot of people talking about, hey, when that goes away, the feelings may show up, or you're not doing it wrong. That was the other thing that I really gleaned from her interview with you.
Yes,
you're not doing it wrong if you're having these feelings. And that's what we're here to talk about, is what happens when you have 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and something shows up in your life. And you have the ability to withstand it and to understand it and not judge it. Oh my gosh, that really hit me.
And for those of you guys that are just joining us on the live stream, you're listening to the Recovered Life Show. I just did a really good interview with Gabri Augello, a Gen Z social media influencer, also sober, talking about the pink cloud. And I'm here with my co-host and partner in crime, Kristina Dennis.
Hello.
And great comment, Kristina. So many great things there. I don't remember thinking like this.
No.
When I was like a year or 2 years. Did you?
I think that I had a lot more emotions come up maybe in my first year. And I know for me, I had to seek outside help and I needed to go to other places. And so, no, I wouldn't say that I had this belief system at 1 year or 2 years. Probably right around 5 or 6 did I start finding the places where I could talk about it.
Yes.
In both cases.
Yes, I like what she was saying about how she journals. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I know. I'm going to have to pull some of those out. I love the self-talk, the remembrance and reminding yourself. I learned in early recovery that your subconscious doesn't know when you're not telling it the truth. So saying something like, you're okay, you've been here before, you're going to get through it again, is so helpful. And when I first got sober, other people told me that. And that's what made me believe.
Absolutely. One of the things that I love about this interview is, we do have a lot of people that listen to the Recovered Life Show, and they are, they're in their first year. They're maybe in their first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And they've just, they stumbled upon us on iTunes or Google or whatever. And they're like, wow, all of a sudden I'm starting to feel good, and the question is, why are you feeling good? A lot of it is physical in early sobriety, I believe. Don't you? I mean,
I do.
Look, if you've been beating yourself up with drugs and alcohol for years,
and
now all of a sudden you're not for 30 days, you're just going to physically feel better.
Well, and that's enough in the beginning, right? I've heard it before. I'm addicted to no more hangovers. And I think that's a great beginning. I know that for me, I was just shocked that I could do it. I also really related to the loss factor of it as well. When Gabri was speaking, first of all, people who got sober during the pandemic, my hat is off to you. That's pretty amazing. I was around people all the time, Monday through Sunday, at a room, talking to somebody, working on my recovery. So those that were able to do it in their homes, I'm just, so glad that they came on different platforms like this one and Clubhouse and talked about it, because many of us, it's the isolation that we have when we stop drinking that really we struggle with. And so I love that she shared there's a lot of loss in the beginning. There's also loss later on. So once, I would assume that when you start grieving is when that pink cloud kind of goes away and you have that loss, and it's very, very normal. But to remember that what we're grieving actually never existed is also really important.
Yeah, I think the whole thing about this too will pass. Like that is an early thing, right? In recovery, like that you learn that is so powerful. It's just like, you know what? These feelings are going to pass. The good feelings and the bad feelings, they're going to pass.
They're so are.
Pass. The and other one, it's just the consistency of staying sober in between those feelings.
Absolutely. And the other one I always heard was you'll feel better. You'll feel sadness better, angry better. And I think that was really, really helpful to say, wow, I have been, numbing these feelings for all this time. And they may feel like they're really, really big in the beginning. But if you stay and you continue to work on your recovery, they do go away. And then that wave may show up again, like she described. I've certainly had many things happen in my sobriety, long-term sobriety, that I was not expecting. But I've been able to hold on, and it's always gotten better.
Well, one of the things that I got from this interview that was really great, that really kind of put a focus on what's going on with me today is that I was thinking the pink cloud is something that people in early recovery experience. Mm-hmm. And that is true. You do, sure. In early recovery, I think it's more like, wow, I'm feeling really great. Everything is working out. Mm-hmm. But, I started to realize I realized, after this interview, I was saying, you know what, I'm having pink clouds too. I'm just not as grateful for them as I used to. Right. Like, yeah, no, it's true. Like, right. It's just like, I have periods of time where things are working really, really well. And I'm feeling good. I'm like, everything is working. Right. And then I have times where that's not happening. We just talked about this in the last episode.
Right.
Is that, we have times too where that's not happening. And, I just don't appreciate it as much. Right. I don't appreciate it as much now as I should.
Yeah. Or we're into overfunctioning. I mean, alcohol is just the beginning for me. And so I had lots and lots of behaviors that I had to work on. I'm still working on. And one of them is sitting in the moment and actually building that neural pathway and recognizing this is what it feels like to feel good. Prior to sobriety, I don't think there was really a moment of peace. Alcohol was the thing that I had to hold on to in order to calm down my nervous system. And now I can do it in so many other healthy ways.
Yeah, this has been such a great episode, Kristina. Thank you so much. It was, this whole thing of feeling good in sobriety, this pink cloud. So many people experience it. There's not a lot about it though. No. People don't really go in depth. They don't go further. And that's really what Recovered Life is all about. That's what the show's about. That's what the private network is about. And guys, I just want to say, if how you can support the show is join Recovered Life. It's totally for free.
Yep.
And you can just go to recoveredlife.us and join it. We have these deep conversations with contributors like Kristina Dennis all the time.
So good over there. So good. I learn every day. And I also know that I'm amongst my people, the same, the people who are after the same thing, that peaceful life, that life that's fun, that life that's worth living. None of us want to get sober and be miserable.
Absolutely. And that's what this is about. How do you live your best recovered life? And just to do a little shameless plug here, if you guys are not joining us on Clubhouse, part of it is just joining that conversation.
Yes.
We talk about it and Recovered Life supports that online. We've got quotes, we've got videos, we've got all this exclusive stuff. Contributors, amazing recovery professionals are in there commenting all the time. I was just in there, reading this huge conversation that had to do with Dry January, actually, that we put up earlier today. That was all about Clubhouse. But if you're not joining us, we are on Clubhouse. It's like 4 days, 5 days?
4 days, Monday through Thursday. Yeah. Yep. We have a room at 9 a.m. Pacific and 11 Central and 12 Eastern. That's about my extent of knowing time zones.
Exactly.
But they're good. They're really good. A lot of people show up and share, and you'll know that you're not alone. Plus, we bring in experts, so it's a very, very good conversation over there.
Yeah. Join us, guys. Join us on Clubhouse. All you have to do is find the Recovered Life Room, or find Kristina and I on Clubhouse. We're on there, Damon, Frank, Kristina, Dennis. Yep. And, follow us there, and we'll definitely turn you on to what rooms we're doing in Clubhouse. An amazing episode.
Thank you.
Episode 75 coming to an end.
There you go.
I can't believe it. So we will see everybody back on Recovered Life soon. So have a great February 16th, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Have a beautiful day and evening.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.